We tend to believe quite strongly, for the most part, that we live in a definable world, a world of things, a world of experiences and phenomena and stuff, all the stuff that is basically resolvable. Um, that we've come in a very real sense to a conclusion, been able to arrive at a conclusion about what things are, and um, yeah, that we know what so much of this that's appearing actually is. And of course, language is a um, big contributor to this belief that we seem to hold about that we've got a handle on what things are, and that we know where we are right now, and that we know what's happening right now. And yeah, in one sense, we do. We're on a Zoom call and in our homes or wherever we are, and it's true. And in many respects, it's sort of that kind of seeming resolvability of things and the knowledge we seem to have about what's going on, is sort of good enough for the most part to live this life and navigate the reality of being ourselves and this human existence. But for purposes of our time here together, we're raising another question, which is, well, maybe we don't actually know what this is. Maybe we don't actually know what anything is. Maybe it's impossible to arrive at a final conclusion about reality, about us, about the stuff we seem to be encountering. Maybe it's impossible to get to the bottom of what anything is. Maybe there is no bottom. And as philosophical as that may seem, as abstract as what I just said may seem, and somehow maybe even ridiculous, um, it's actually what we're concretely experiencing. We're concretely experiencing infinity right now. This moment of just sitting here and being here and listening, and in my case, speaking. Um, if we investigate, which we can do right now, any aspect of what seems to be here, what is appearing experientially, we look at any aspect of it, we feel into any aspect of it, we can see the absolute concrete evidence of infinity staring us in the face, both what's being perceived and the one we imagine ourselves to be as the perceiver. Whatever direction we go, to subjectivity, so-called, or objectivity of what's being perceived, it doesn't matter. You can look at anything and you will see, you are seeing endlessness. And that's what I mean when I say infinity. I mean, I'm looking at my computer screen, what I call my computer screen right now. If you're on your computer, you're looking at what you would call a computer screen. If you're on your phone, you're looking at your phone or whatever device you're on the Zoom meeting using. Are you looking at something finite that you actually conclude what makes the computer screen? Just look right now. It's endless what you're seeing, isn't it? Not only is it endless in terms of what the details that make up the visual field that you call the computer screen. The details are endless. I mean, you could just keep finding more and more and more as you look. And if you zoom into any of the seeming discrete differentiated details of the visual field that makes up your so-called computer screen, you just fall into more and more details. So there's that infinity, and then there's the infinity of the way those details seem to be appearing. You could say the perspective. From one vantage, what I call a bookshelf looks like this, and then in the next flash instant, I'm seeing a different aspect of what I call the bookshelf, and then another aspect, and then a particular shape comes more into view, and then a particular texture comes more into view, and then a particular color comes more into view, and then a particular shadowing comes more into view, and then the way the shapes are meeting comes into view, and then the way the object sits in its context of the rest of the room comes into view. And I could just go on and on and on and on and on to the endlessness of this one tiny aspect of the vast visual field, right? It's endless. I never I will never arrive at the end of like, oh, Eureka, I finally got to the end of what makes this particular visual object what I'm calling a computer screen. I mean, exactly where is the end where I arrived at the I've resolved what it is and how it is. Again, this unresolvability, this indeterminacy, this infinity that I'm pointing to can also really be seen not just in terms of the infinite number of details that seem to be showing up perceptually, but also the infinity of perspectives, the infinity of ways the details can seem to be appearing, right? It's like in each flash, we're slipping into what might be called another perspective on whatever it is that's being perceived. Another vantage point, another viewing point, another way it seems to be, right? Can you feel the how unstable it is? Like we think of the thing being perceived like it's real stable. It's just kind of sitting there as this unmoving object, whatever you're looking at in this case. I'm talking about my screen, my computer screen, but the actual feeling of the perception, it's just it's just it's just so much slipping away, right? And that's again uh, more evidence of the infinity of this, the endlessness of this. One perspective morphing into the next perspective. And I talk about this all the time of the distinction between thinking about what's here and feeling what's here. The felt sense of what's here is just simply endless and it's not resolving as something. Because what we might think of as the resolution of something, some object, some subjective experience, is it's as if the seeming resolution is the dissolution of that knowing, right? The the arising of the resolution, this is what it is the disappearing of that seeming resolution, isn't it? Unless we do what, or consciousness does what it tends to do, which is kind of pretend that it's not slipping away, pretend that it has a kind of continuity and stasis, right? And stability, but it doesn't. And that's its endless transformation. We could say it's endless unfolding. Again, you could pick anything to discover this, the concrete presence of infinity. I mean, we think of the body as, we could say almost the ultimate of finiteness, right? And limited. It's limited. But the experience of what you call the body right now, the feeling of the body, of what the body is. I mean, we say we know what the body is. We have a word to refer to this thing that's sitting here or where whatever your position is right now. And as you feel that supposed thing that's got a seeming resolution to it, which is why we have a label for it, like I resolved what it is, it's a body. Go ahead and see if you can actually resolve it. See if you can actually get to the end of what makes the body the body. Feel it. Feel the sensations that make up. Feel what we call sensations because they're unresolvable infinity as well. But if you want to describe what the body is as a set of flowing sensations, kind of patterning of sensation that we call the body, and feel that and feel the endlessness of those sensations, that they have no final conclusion to them, no bottom. You don't have to go looking for the infinity. It's meeting us. In a sense, you could say it's coming to us. It is us. We are the bottomless infinity that we think of often as the body, mind, organism. But it's more accurate to say that what's sitting here right now is not a body mind, finite, limited body mind, but what's sitting here is boundless, endless infinity, appearing as a finite form. But when you go to find the finite form, you find infinity, don't you? You find endlessness. Infinity sounds very abstract and right, but it's actually all of the ideas of definition and resolution and finiteness and limit, definitional limit, is actually the abstraction. What's concrete and actual and empirically the case is this infinity. This is what we're feeling. We could say, oh, I'm feeling afraid, but that pattern that we call fear, that seeming pattern that has a fixed kind of nature to it that I can then recognize, oh, there it is. that flavor that I call fear. Like it's very paradoxical because it shows up as something specific. But when you go to explore and get to the bottom of what makes that, what makes fear fear, or joy joy, or sorrow sorrow, you just explore anywhere you look. It's the exploration is easy in the sense of it's just right here, and it's what anything that you're experiencing that you imagine you know what it is, and you've determined what it is, and you have a final rendering of it and map of it and definition of it. In other words, you've concluded what it is, you've resolved what it is, hence, here's my category that I can put it in. It's like just look again and you will find this concrete infinity that is limitless, endless, unbounded, transcending all notions of limit, all notions of lack, all notions of bondage, all notions of problem, all notions of, well, anything, all notions of anything. That's how free it is. And in its freedom, it is, it would appear to be free to appear as limit, as definition, as form, as patterning, right? As us sitting together, exploring the nature of reality. Like it looks like something, in other words. It's fundamentally impossible to find what this is. It has no identity in that sense, no final conclusion, but it shows up as something. It shows up as something like if you've met me before in these meetings or in person, then I'm showing up to you presumably as something identifiable, as someone you know in some sense, have seen before, heard before. But not really. That's just half of the story. Our seeming capability to grasp hold of what things are and know them in the instant as whatever they seem to be in that instant. In the instant that we imagine ourselves capable of determining what something is, that something we think we've determined and come to a final conclusion about is gone. We try to grasp hold of, consciousness tries to grasp hold of the moment with its interpretations, and the moment is not here long enough to be grasped, you see. That's the free fall of infinity, of never landing somewhere. But it's not like a fixed person falling through infinite space. It's you are the infinite space. So there's no one falling through anything. There's just this. It has no findable end, and that's its infinity. From the tiniest part of it to the cosmically vast part of it, it's infinity, no matter where you look. Somebody asked a question in the chat, I understand it conceptually, this infinity, but how do I make it my experience? And um, I don't mean to like hand do a hand wave and to say this, but it is your experience. Look and see. and see if in what way is it finite? In what way does it have an end point to it? If you find the end point that you can identify, like there's the essence. This is another way to think about this, that the essence of this is what makes John John. It's like, oh hi, yeah, that there's the essence. You see, it's essenceless. You are essenceless in the sense of, you think about these different um, kind of systems of describing human beings, like the Myers-Briggs type indicator, if you remember that system, or the something like the astrological ways of describing our nature, or the Enneagram, if you're familiar with that. I mean, those can be fun to play with and I guess potentially informative of sort of ways we seem to be patterned as creatures, right? Would be, I guess, one way to describe it. But do you ever have the feeling like that somehow those systems were lacking in terms of being able to really get to the essence and bottom of your infinite multidimensionality? That's a common experience I have had with them. Um, it's uh, yeah, th those systems are trying to put reality into boxes and categories, and again, however useful those may be, um, it's you're trying to throw a net of descriptions over something that just won't be captured, because it's too vast and too mysterious and right.